What's going on, everybody? What's happening? What's shaking? What's doing? It is Wednesday, February the 5th, 2025, 3:10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is episode 312. 312. My nose is itchy. Doesn't that mean good things like good luck is coming your way? Financial or something? I don't know. Episode 312 of McRae Live. My name's Dave McRae, coming to you live from the Voice Band Studios in Toronto, Canada. Jason Voorhees, Friday the 13th. Oh, one more time. What are your favorite Jason moments from the Friday the 13th franchise? I'm rocking my Friday the 13th hoodie today. You see that right there? It's kind of faded and worn. I've had this for about 10 years, but I thought I'd rock it today. What are your favorite Jason moments from Friday the 13th Part 1? He was in it. Part 2, Part 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The remake. Jump into the comment section. Let me know your thoughts. I want to know, ladies and gentlemen, Friday the 13th. What are your favorite moments? Or favorite Jason moments, I should say. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 312 of McRae Live. And I thought I would jump on and talk about some of my favorite Jason moments from the franchise. Now, admittedly, when the show is done, I did some thinking about it. I did a little research. I wrote it all down. Well, I didn't write it down. I typed it over on the other screen over here so I could keep track. There's probably going to be like one or two when the show is done. I'm like, damn, I missed that. But this is just going from what I can remember. This is not a series that I watch on the regular. It's not like I'm popping in Friday the 13th every week or every month or even every year. So I'm going by memory, of course, as the movies go on. The less and less there are because I'm not a big fan of the later sequels. And so, there are some redeeming qualities, of course, but when I think of Friday the 13th to me, like when I got into Friday the 13th, there was only like 3 Friday the 13th movies. You know what I mean? There was 1, 2, and 3. And then 4 came out when I was 5 years old and I was all into Friday. I was like, that's the final chapter. And it was a lie. But so for me, it's kind of strange. When the late 80s came around, you would think that I would still be into Friday the 13th, and I really wasn't. When I think of Friday the 13th, I think of those first 4 films. When I think of Jason Voorhees, no disrespect to Kane Hodder, he's a Friday the 13th legend. He's a horror legend. He's a lot of people's Jasons, or Jason, I should say. But for me, when I think of Friday the 13th, I think of primarily Richard Brooker and Ted White. Friday the 13th 3, Friday the 13th 4. And then if you want to throw in Gillette in there as well in Friday the 13th Part 2, for sure. But definitely when I think of like hockey mask, like when I think of Jason in the hockey mask, the first thing that pops into my head is usually Richard Brooker from Part 3. And then followed closely right behind with Ted White from Part 4. I don't really think of Kane Hodder and Jason, and it's not because I was an old fogey by that time. I mean, when Hodder took over, I was about 8. So it's not like I was like, ancient. I just, for whatever reason, the prime years of my life as a little boy that where these movies had such an impact on me as a horror fan was probably 4 through 6. You know what I mean? And that's, I'm just, I just ate it up. Whereas by the time we got around to the late 80s, I was like, I thought it was, I was still into it. But I didn't like the movies as much. Like even as an 8, 9-year-old kid, I knew they were crap, but I don't know. No, look. Everybody has their likes. Everybody has their dislikes. What you love, you love. What you don't like. But I wanted to take some time here today and just go through some of my favorite moments. Now, this is not going to be a surprise, really. At the end of the day, most of my favorite Jason moments from the franchise are probably some of your favorite Jason moments of the franchise as well. So it's not like we're reinventing the wheel here, but I just thought it'd be fun to go over and see if you guys agree, and if there's anything I've left off the list that is on your list. And folks, please don't in the comment section say you forgot. Well, maybe I didn't. Maybe it's just not on my list. Maybe it's on your list, but maybe it's not on my list. Right? Maybe I didn't forget. If I forgot, I would let you know. Like I said at the beginning of the show, there might be something I forgot. And maybe there's something you say that I did forget. But some people, like, when you see that, like a ranking, people will do rankings. And then somebody in the comments will go, you forgot to. No. They didn't forget. This is their ranking. Yours may differ. Right? That's how it works, folks. That's how it works. They didn't forget. They just don't agree with you. Anyway, so let's jump into it. Friday the 13th, part 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Anyway, 1, 2, 2. 1, 2, 3, cat. Okay, here we go. Number 1, Friday the 13th, part 1. Friday the 13th, part 1. He's not in the movie a lot. He's not really in the movie at all. And although this is not, technically it's not Jason, it is supposed to be Jason when you realize what's happening at the end of the movie and how, Jason's mother, Pamela Voorhees, is she is quite off her rocker, and she's, channeling this little child voice in, kill her, mommy, kill her. I mean, that's supposed to be Jason. Even though it's not Jason, it's supposed to be Jason. Not actually channel. I don't believe at any point that it is the spirit or dead ghost of Jason channeling through, his mother, and she's going, kill her, mommy. Like, I don't actually believe that in the literal sense. I think it's just Pamela Voorhees just, she's just like, yeah, kill her, mommy. Like, she's just thinking about back to the whole, you know what I mean? And that's how I think it's supposed to be interpreted, and that's how I've always interpreted. I don't actually think he's literally channeling through. But technically, it's kind of Jason-ish, right? And I've always liked that moment in Friday the 13th. It's one of my favorite moments actually in the franchise. So some of my favorite moments in the franchise when it comes to mood, atmosphere, and suspense are in that film. I think it's one of the more moodier films of the series. And I could go on and talk about all that, but that's a whole other show. But I will say this, that I love that scene. God, I forget the character's name now. The actress sadly passed away not that long ago, a while ago, but she sadly passed away. The chat room will let me know what her name is. But she's in her cabin, right? And it's just them that are there. I mean, there's no kids there yet, right? They're getting things, all sort of set up. And she's in her cabin. It's raining outside, thunderstorm and all that kind of stuff. And you just hear outside, help me, help me. Oh, it's the fucking eeriest thing of all time. It is really, really eerie. And that's supposed to be Jason. Do you know what I mean? At least that's how I've always interpreted. I mean, I haven't interpreted that it's just some random kid out there. Of course, I guess you could see it that way. But I've always found that eerie and creepy, just from a narrative structure, execution standpoint. I mean, it could be a completely different movie, not Friday the 13th. It's not Jason. It's some chick in a cabin, and there's a rainstorm, and she hears a kid's voice outside. That's just creepy. That's just creepy. You know what I'm saying? So that is really, really, really great. And I've always loved that. So is it Jason? Not literally Jason. It's Pamela Voorhees out in the 60-year-old woman flying out the woods going, help me. I mean, that in and of itself is creepy. But I've always loved that. One of my favorite moments in the franchise when it comes to Jason. Another one from Friday the 13th, part 1 is, of course, the ending. I mean, how can we, it's one of the most iconic endings in all of horror, one of the most iconic endings in all of slasher movies. They subvert your expectations. You think everything's going to be, like nowadays, again, you have to watch these movies for those of you that are a bit younger, who probably watch these movies, well, it's not a big deal. It's just a typical Wednesday for me when I watch horror movies. It's like, yeah, it's a typical Wednesday for you when you watch horror movies. Today, in 2025. But in 1980, not that those kind of shocking endings were non-existent. I mean, Carrie from 1976 sort of, it had a, it might have been the one that sort of started it all. But it wasn't commonplace, right? I mean, it is more likely to shock and surprise you 45 years ago than it is today. Like today, audiences are smarter, they're wiser, they're desensitized. They've seen this shit 5,721 times. And for, 22-year-old Bobby, it's a typical horror movie night on a Wednesday. But in 1980, it was like, oh, I guess she's just, oh yeah, the cops. Ah! Ah! Holy fuck! I mean, that's what it was like. I mean, it was like, you know what I mean? Like, holy Jesus, Today it's like, yeah, totally saw that coming. Yeah, you totally saw it coming because of all the horror movies that do it now. But if you didn't, you wouldn't have expected it. And so shocking, amazing, crazy, creepy, eerie, wild, awesome. No doubt about it. Okay, Friday, if you're wondering why I'm looking over here, it's because I have my notes. Friday the 13th Part 2. I've always really liked this in Friday the 13th Part 2. I don't know why. And a lot of these things that I'm talking about, they go back. You might be like, oh, that's kind of strange. But it goes back to as a child, as a kid, right? Again, I'm 45. I'll be 46 in a few months. I can't believe it. And, you know, when these movies were the hot thing on the table, I was a very impressionable young little boy of 4 years old and 5 years old and 6 years old. And I was getting into it. And my older brother, Neil, was really into horror movies. And, you know, Jason, Freddy, Michael. More Jason and Freddy because, like I said, Michael was like virtually non-existent, or virtually existent. He was non-existent, virtually non-existent. Yeah, that's right. I got it. Anyway, so this scene, for whatever reason, I don't know why, I just like it. I don't know why. It just like the look of it. It's just eerie. It's creepy. It's just a moment. It's when Ginny is hiding behind the door, and then all of a sudden the pitchfork comes through the door. And it's just creepy. It's very sort of theatrical in a way, the way it comes through the door. It's almost like it's, and I don't say this in a bad way, it's almost like it's staged. Like it's just like almost like it's an animatronic or something going, you know what I mean? There's something about it that's, I can't quite put my finger on exactly what it is. That's really the only way that I know how to describe it, is like this little sort of like this animatronic kind of, I don't know, it's creepy. It just looks creepy. It's eerie. Still gets me to this day. I love that. The sit up in bed, the reveal when you finally realize that he's got a sack on his head. Now, of course, this is Friday the 13th Part 2. You would not have been expecting a hockey mask, but you don't know what he looks like. You have no idea what he looks like. And the fact that we see he takes the covers off, he sits up in bed and is like, oh, he's got a fucking sack on his head with one eye. That's totally cool. Love that. Something Darren from The Slaughtered Lamb mentioned the other day, which was sort of part of the inspiration to do this show, because he was ranking all of the Friday the 13th movies over on his own channel called Mr. Sandsman. Mr. Sandsman. I want to make sure I got that right. Darren, I don't know if you're watching, but feel free to throw that link into the chat. If you haven't subscribed to Mr. Sandsman, please do, because it's awesome. And also Frank Riker. I see Frank there is in the chat. Frank has his own channel as well. So there's The Slaughtered Lamb with both of them. And then there's Frank Riker and Mr. Sandsman, and they're great content over there. So make sure you subscribe to both. But anyway, so I was watching his ranking of Friday the 13th, and I was like, oh, I forgot about this. Yeah, that is, yes, I always liked that as a kid. I always thought it was weird and just like a sign of like there's something wrong with him. It's weird. It's very subtle, but it's when it's the close up of Jason's hand holding the butcher knife with the little black mark on his thumb. That resonated with me as like a 5-year-old kid. There was something, it was weird. It was like, why is his thumbnail black? Did he bruise it? Is it like, what is that? So weird. Like, it's just, there's something, ooh. Of course, now it's like, what are you talking about? But back then, man, it was creepy. It was very creepy. It was very, very creepy. So I love that. Also, too, let me see here. The end of Part 2. The end of Part 2. I love the end. It's like, oh, it's muffin at the door, and everything's fine. And then all of a sudden, Jason comes crashing through the window. This rivals. I know some people, I mean that the ending of Part 1 is classic. It's classic. But this rivals it. I mean, it's up there. I mean, it's one of the great endings in the Friday the 13th franchise. And this sudden moment where he comes through the window, the glass is smashing. He's got like this black hair with these bald patches. His face is like, it's just like, what is, and he's like, it's just like, what the fuck is that? Love it. Love it. Was it a dream? Was it not a dream? I don't know. We never saw these people ever again. What happened to the dog? What happened to Paul? What happened to Ginny? We don't know. We We don't know. We don't know. Of course, we do see Ginny being carried away on on a stretcher. Paul, where's Paul? It's like, maybe, I don't know. Love it. Love that so much. Let me see here. So those are some of my favorite Jason moments in part 2. Oh, I love what was it? Was it a pitchfork? Or was it a spear? I can't remember now. Maybe I'm getting the two movies. Anyways, when the couple is making love and he puts the right through both of them, right to I think it's the pitchfork, right? Yeah, love that moment as well. Great stuff. Great stuff. Great stuff with the sack. The sack is back. Friday the 13th, part 3. Woo! Listen, I've talked about this before, but when we first see him, when we first see the hockey mask, I mean, this is 1982. And this is the beginning. That scene right there, when the girl is on the dock and the wallet is in the water, and she gets in and she thinks it's what's his face? Why am I blanking on his? Shelley. When he thinks it's oh hi, it's your wallet. How are you? And he just casually walks out with a spear gun. He's got the mask on. Brooker looks fucking like a tank. The prosthetics they did with him, he's got traps that are like Goldberg, and he's just like there, and he's just, and those traps, which aren't really there in Friday the 13th part 4, and aren't really there in any other iteration of Jason as far as I know. Now, we have different, listen, Kane Hodder was a big dude and had traps himself, but Kane Hodder's not a tall guy. I know we're not going to get into that. Okay. I'm just saying he's not as tall as Brooker or Ted White. And, despite what you may think. And, but he was wide. He was wide. He was like a, he was wide. It's like a center. No, he was anyways, he was wide. He was a big guy. But the way they did the traps on Brooker, and they didn't even look even. Do you know what I mean? And I think that went well with the look of him. Like, they didn't really look even. They were a little bit disproportionate. Anyways, love the look of him, but love when he's on the dock there, and there it is. That's the beginning. Listen, despite what we might think of the later Friday films, that hockey mask, that goalie mask, is one of the most iconic symbols in the history of horror. And that's the scene right there where we first see it. That is, and I don't think it gets enough attention, really. If you think about it, it should be one of the most iconic scenes in the history of horror films, slasher films especially, if you want to whittle it down to the subgenre. But it should be. There is the beginning of an icon in a lot of ways. And I love the way he just holds up the gun, down she goes. He just throws it away and casually walks off, like it's nobody's business. And I think the traps and how big he is, how front-loaded he is, or how top-heavy he is, just makes the casual saunter, that much more hilarious. In a good way. I don't mean it's comical in a cringy way. I just mean it's just hilarious. I got something in my eye now. I don't know what's going on here. Jesus. It's the power of suggestion. Anyways, I love that in Friday the 13th part 3, the beginning of the mask, of course. I love the POV shot from Christy, is that her name? I can't remember now. Her perspective when she, acts right to the thing, and then he goes like this, and he's coming at her like that, whatever. Love that. It's like, oh my God. I love when he's hanging from the rope and he lifts the mask up and you see his face. It's like, oh, ow, ow. What is this shit? Love at the end as well when he's maskless and he's looking through the window. There's something, I gotta say, I think I prefer, and they're very similar. I don't know, was Kevin Yeager a part? I think Yeager did this, right? I think he was Yeager working on Friday movies? I think he was. Anyway, I stand corrected, but whoever the makeup artist was on 3 and 4, and maybe it was the same person, they look similar. Like, there's no doubt there's a similar look to both of them. When you look at what he looks like in 3 and what he looks like in 4 when he's demasked. But there's something about the look of him in 3 that I think I like more than 4. But maybe it's just everything else that goes with it. Because like I said, Ted White was a big guy. And Richard Brooker was a big guy. But I don't remember the traps on White's Jason. I don't remember him having like these gigantic, there's something about he just looked menacing in Friday the 13th Part 3. Like just a very big man. Very, very big man. And I quite like that. So like the way he looked with his mask off when he's looking out the window, of course, was it a dream? Was she imagining it? I don't know. And then the mother coming out of the water at the end is just like, why is the mother even in the water? I mean, I guess her head was cut off but she didn't drown. Like, presumably the police would have showed and they would have carried her, but why is it just a dream? I guess just a dream. It's kind of weird. It's not as effective. It's not as effective. It's still creepy, but it's not as effective. And what happened to the lake? It's like a man-made swamp in the middle of California. Oh, because it was. Anyway, it's like it does not look like a lake at all. It looks like a swamp. I'm expecting to see Swamp Thing come out of that. It doesn't look like a lake. It's a Crystal Lake. That's not Crystal Lake. Jeez, I could do that in my backyard. Everything's too brown. Everything's too brown. Anyway, I think I'm spitting all over the place here. But love all that. Jason Friday 13th Part 4. Love the beginning when he kills, what's his face? Is it Alex? No, oh God, what's his name? The guy from the Police Academy films. The guy from the Police Academy films. Fuck, what's his face? Why do I want to say Alex? I think it begins with an A. A? No? What's his name? Not his real name. The character at the beginning of Friday the 13th Part 4. Why do I always blank on his name? I guess I could have looked it up. There's a delay, so somebody will tell me his name. Axel, that's it. I said Alex. Axel. So I was right. It does begin with an A. Axel, that's it. Love his death. I think it's fun. Just the turn of the head is really cool. I love the death in the shower. In the shower is one of my favorite Friday the 13th kills ever. I forget the character's name, but whatever. The handsome-looking dude is having a shower. Jason comes, smashes his hand right through the glass, grabbing his face. You can hear the crunching of the bones in his skull. You can see his face becoming distorted, and the blood and the skin falling to the shower. The bottom there, and the way the mask looks, it almost looks a little off center, like it would be maybe if you're physically doing that, and not everything's going to be perfect. Just the way Jason looks, the lens they used, how dirty he looks, how kind of off center the mask is, how kind of just fucking, you know what I mean? Like it's eerie, it's creepy. Love that kill, love that shot of Jason. Love when he tosses the woman. One of the twins, I think it's one of the twins, right? From the house, from the window. No, was it one of the twins? I think it was. Anyways, he tosses just the way he goes like this, and his arms are out like this. He just, the way his arms look as he tosses her. Of course, I believe that was a dude in a wig that fell and hit the ground and hit the car. But anyway, love that shot. Love hey, Tad, where's the corkscrew? Oh, Crispin, what a name. Love it. I love just the meat cleaver to the face. He's like, where's the corkscrew? And then and the way that Crispin goes, like, he goes like, like it just, like he looks to his hand, and then as soon as he looks to his hand, the meat cleaver comes to the face. So it's just he's like a, it's one of those things, and just love it. And so, one of my favorite moments, of course, in that film as well. And then I love the moment at the end of the movie when the machete is like driving through his face, and he's like his skull is falling on, like his head is falling on it. He's just, I'm just like, yes. I remember as a kid being like, well, how can he can't come back from that? Like, it's over. Like it's over. I mean, that's literally going through his face, through his skull, through his brain. I mean, I'm like, he's done. He's done. Boy, was I wrong. So, but I love that. Friday the 13th 5. Of course, it's not Jason. It's Roy, the ambulance driver. But I do love the moment in Friday the 13th 5 when Tommy is in bed in the hospital. Well, I'll finish this and then I'll go back to 4. I love the moment when he thinks he sees Jason, right? At the foot of his bed. Love the way he looks there. Like he looks like it's Jason. Like it's not Ted White, I don't think, but it just looks awesome. He looks great. I love the way he looks, the mask, the blood, the gash. He just looks awesome. Going back to the ending of part 4 for a second. I know this is not specifically Jason, but it's connected to Jason. It's one of my favorite moments in the entire franchise. Kind of like how the help me, mommy. I mean, that's not, technically it's not literally Jason, but it's Pamela, it's the mother pretending to be Jason to try to get the girl, you know what I'm saying? So it's like a cousin. I'm going to throw it in here. So this is similar to that, which is at the end of Friday the 13th part 4, when Tommy, little Corey Feldman, was standing in the doorway, and of course he shaved his head. He looks, it's very eerie the way they backlit him. He's silhouetted. And then when he hugs his sister, there's that moment, right? It's fantastic. And if they had never made... Could you imagine if they had never made another Friday the 13th movie ever again? And somehow, I don't know if you'd want Corey Feldman now. Corey Feldman today is a little eccentric. I don't know. But could you imagine if, they never made another one and then years later they make like a legacy sequel and, everybody comes back and it'd be really cool. But anyway, so I love the ending when he's hugging his sister and it's just that shot of Corey Feldman, Tommy Jarvis with his eyes closed, and he just opens and he looks right at the camera, and then it's just this freeze frame. There is so much being said in that moment that is like, and again, he's not Jason, but it's almost like he could be, there's something that's happened that maybe he could be the next Jason. You know what I mean? I mean, not literally the next Jason. People are going to call him Jason, but just like it's so great. It's great. There's so much being said. There's so much cinematic language in that look. You know what I mean? And just sort of and symbolism around that, which I think is really cool. So I love that. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention it. Friday the 13th part 6. Again, as I said at the beginning of the show, the Friday the 13th franchise for me, when I think of the Friday the 13th franchise, I think of 1 through 4. And I'll sometimes throw 5 in there. I rarely think of 6 onward. I just don't. Now, I don't think 6 is a bad movie, but it is the MTV version of the Friday the 13th franchise. Very much like Elm Street 4, began to go in that way. And although I will say Alice Cooper, the man behind the mask, or the man in the mask, behind the mask, whatever it is, fucking amazing song. Like, amazing song. I love that song. Great soundtrack. But Friday the 13th part 6, it has its tongue firmly planted in its cheek, and it's winking at the audience. And so there's a very different tone. And I get it. I mean, by this point, what the hell else are you going to do? I mean, you're at the 6th movie. I mean, these movies they churned these movies out like it was nobody's, business. They're easy to make. There's nothing, so what are you going to do? I get it. But, and I like CJ Graham as Jason. I think he's got the right size. He's kind of like that mix between Brooker and White a bit. He's kind of got that Brooker and White thing kind of happening. Like if you mesh the two together and got rid of the traps, maybe, I don't know, you'd get CJ Graham. I'm not sure. Not that CJ Graham doesn't have trap, but you know what I'm saying. So I do like the movie, but overall, yeah, I don't really care, even though it tends to be a fan favorite. But I will say that motorhome scene, the camper scene, is fantastic. Like, just that whole scene is great. It's probably my favorite Jason scene in the movie. One of them for sure. Love when he's just standing on top of the camper at the very end, like he's admiring his carnage, and there's fire all around, and this low angle shot, and he's just standing up there like, yeah, bitches, that's right. Fucking bitches, I'm back. You know what I mean? Just, it's cool. It's fun. I also like the moment when, and I'm a little hazy on this, but when they're, and I know that this is like the first film where you actually have kids at the camp, but when that little girl, and I think her name is Nancy, right? When she sees Jason and she thinks it's a dream, so she's so cute. That girl's so cute. And she closes her eyes like, oh, please, 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 please. And then she opens them again and he's gone. I really like that. I really like that moment with Jason. I thought that was a nice touch. And And I also like when he kills, is it the sheriff? Whatever, when he kills the sheriff, it's like, oh my God. You know, like we see a similar kill with John Ritter's son, I believe, in Freddy versus Jason on the bed, if I'm not mistaken. But that just the way his back and his legs come up together. I think you guys know the scene I'm talking about. Really love that kill. And that's a fun Jason moment for sure. Friday the 13th Part 7. We're getting a little scarce here. No disrespect to Kane Hodder, of course. But I think this is probably the best looking Kane Hodder version of Jason. I think this is a great looking Jason. I still prefer the earlier films, you know, Brooker, White, even CJ Graham. The only thing I don't like about Jason and CJ Graham, and I will say this, and I would be remiss if I didn't say this, I'm not a fan of the tool belt and the gloves. It just feels a little tactical for me. It just feels a little like he went to Home Hardware, you know, and Home Depot, bought a tool belt, picked up some gloves, went through the self-checkout. They didn't have self-checkout then, but I don't think anyway. But you know what I mean? Like it's, you know, it's one of those things where it just feels a little costumey, you know. Some people love it. I'm not a big fan. But in Friday the 13th Part 7, I think this is the best that Kane Hodder has looked as Jason. I love seeing and it makes sense because he's been underwater. I mean, the continuity with that makes sense, right? Although then again, wasn't he underwater for fucking 20 years before this whole thing? He probably should have looked like that in Friday the 13th Part 2, if you want to get technical. But the fact that he was put underwater, you know, at the end of 6, and of course he's deteriorating and his skin is falling off and little fish are eating his skin and whatever. It makes sense that he comes out, you see his rib cage and his spine and his, like it's a real, just from a purely makeup, effects, costume, it's fantastic. Like he looks really cool. He looks really cool. And he's a scary Jason. I don't find Kane Hodder's Jason scarier. Like I think his version gets less scary, and I don't know if that has anything to do with the way he's shot or what, I'm not sure. But he's quite scary in 7. And I love the stair scene. I'm just going to call it that, when he's in the house and he's walking up the stairs, and then I think, you know, we'll call her Carrie. She's not Carrie, but you know, she's got the telekinesis, and he just like flies backward or something. Was it after the mask splits? I can't remember, but he flies backward like through the stairs into the basement. Something like that, right? It was something like that. Anyways, I really liked that moment. I thought that was a cool, fun sort of moment. Overall, not a big fan of the movie, of course, but I did like that moment. And then, of course, I couldn't think of really anything I liked with Jason in Friday the 13th Part 8 or Jason Goes to Hell, because there really is no Jason in Jason Goes to Hell. In Freddy versus Jason, the same, really. Although I guess if we want to talk about 8, something that does come to mind is when he picks up future Jason Voorhees. I think it's him, right? Does he pick up, or is it another guy? Anyways, Kane Hodder meets future Jason Voorhees, who was going to play Jason in Freddy versus Jason, in the, who's a Canadian, by the way, I believe, in the diner in New York. And I think he picks him up and throws him into the mirror, the glass on the other side of the bar or something. Was it him he did that with? Anyways, that's kind of a cool action scene, I guess, or whatever. But overall, I'm not a fan of Friday the 13th Jason Goes to New York, or Jason Goes to Vancouver, or Jason Takes a Boat to Vancouver, because really only the last 10 minutes of the movie are in New York. Not really a big fan of the movie at all. I know some people are like, yeah, what about the scene where he punches some guy's head off? Yeah, that's jumping the shark for me. That's just, by the time you're doing that kind of stuff, not that the Friday the 13th movies were ever realistic, but once there's certain rules that the Friday the 13th franchise, certainly in those earlier films, kind of, played into. And punching some guy's head literally off his neck, we're into Looney Tunes territory now, right? And so I didn't really care. And Jason Goes to Hell, I'm like, it's a piece of shit. It's a piece of shit. It's the Freddy's Dead of the franchise. And then Freddy versus Jason, again, when it comes to Freddy versus Jason, I couldn't really, You know, I think he looks cool, I guess, in the cornfield with the fire and everything. He looks kind of cool. But he was such a departure from the Jason that we were used to that it almost didn't feel like Jason. That's no disrespect to Ken. I think his name's Ken something. But when it comes to the remake, I do like the opening of the remake. I thought that was a cool opening, for sure. And I also like when the pothead guy, the Asian guy, is in like the barn or something, and he turns on the light and you see big fucking Derek Mears, who I think was a great Jason, personally. I wasn't really a fan of the remake overall. I think they crammed a little, I don't know, I didn't think it was terrible, but I just didn't, it didn't move the needle for me, really. But I thought Derek Mears was a terrific Jason, a big guy, not quite as tall as Tyler Mane, although very close. Tyler Mane is 6'8", Mears is like 6'7", 6'6", something like that. So he's still a really, really big dude. And I thought Mears looked fantastic as Jason, like the size. You know what I mean? Like very Richard Brooker. I don't think Richard Brooker actually is as tall as that, but he still had that size. Or maybe he is. Maybe Richard, I don't know. How tall is Richard Brooker? What, 6'3"? He's got to be at least 6'3". Anyway, Ted White was around there too. I think Ted White was like 6'3" or 4". But I love just the look and he's just standing there. He's got such commanding presence. You know what I mean? Love that. So yeah. So I'm sure there's probably going to be a couple of things I think about after I get off the show here today, but generally speaking, and it's not that I don't have others that I also like, but these are some of the like moments that will kind of come to my mind very quickly when I think of Jason Voorhees and the Friday the 13th franchise. So don't take this as I don't like anything else or there's nothing else in any of these movies that move the needle or that I think is really cool. No, of course there are. But these are some of the more standout ones that I'm like, oh yeah, I really like that. Oh, that, you know, it's like, Dave, Jason Voorhees, you know, what pops into your head, right? Like that's kind of how I'm measuring this. And these were some of the top ones for sure. So folks, listen, if you're watching after the fact, jump into the comment section and let me know your thoughts on your favorite Jason Voorhees moment. So not necessarily your favorite moments, although they could include Jason, which means you couldn't do that. But your favorite Jason Voorhees moments from any of the Friday the 13th movies, make sure you jump into the comment section and let me know your thoughts on what they are. I would love to know. Okay. Let's jump over to the chat room and see what all of you are saying. Tell me your favorite Jason moments. As a reminder, if you want your question or comment guaranteed a response, you have to send it a super chat. I do get to non-super chat ones and non-member chat ones as well. But of course, they will always take priority for obvious reasons. So let's jump over. I do believe some super chats did come in. So let me just make sure I don't miss them. Let me see here. Go back to the start. The Violator 862 says, hey Dave, just want to say congrats on finishing your screenplay. Thank you. Yes. What are your next steps in the production process currently? Thank you. Yeah. So the Violator 862 is just saying, just wish me congratulations. Today on social media, I made a post. I said that I had finished the screenplay that I had been writing for the last 20 years and off and on. And it's based on true events from my second year of college. I've talked about it here on the channel. It is a horror thriller drama, paranormal involved, but it's not a slasher movie. It's not a blood guts movie. It's more of a I guess, like I said in my post, the term today, I guess, would be a little more, would be elevated. It's more mature, right? And so, and I've always known this about the story. I never, even when I was first writing it, I never wanted it to be a pedestrian, run-of-the-mill, typical college-aged kid supernatural haunted house movie. There's a dime a dozen of those, and this was a little more meaningful to me. Like I said in my post, I think one of the reasons why it's taken me so long to write it and to really find the narrative and the story of what this is really supposed to be about was because I had to live more of my life. No disrespect to anybody who's young, and it's not that you can't write a great story when you're young. Of course you can, but you know, I had to live more of my life and experience more of my life and gain more in my life and lose more in my life in order to become a wiser person and have a different perspective on life. It is true that as you get wiser, or excuse me, as you get older, you don't necessarily get wiser, but hopefully as you get older, you get wiser and you know, look at life differently. I mean, I'm approaching my 50s in the next few years here, right? And so, you know, you look at life different once you realize you've lived half of it. Or more than half of it. And so, you know, I realized that, yeah, I had to live more of my life to then turn back to the script and realize what this is, you know, what the focus should be, what the narrative should be, and what I want it to be. It's a very personal piece, and it is full of mood and atmosphere and suspense and all that, but it's not just a scary movie. Do you know what I mean? There's more to it. I'm not saying it's the Shawshank Redemption. I'm not saying that. I'm not that good of a screenwriter. I just mean that it's got more. It's not just that. And I think that in order for me to instill those narrative beats and that into the script, I had to live more of life in order to be able to do that. I don't think I was wise enough, mature enough to be able to do that at that time because I couldn't put me into it. I couldn't, like, on that side of the coin, right? The more meat of the story and the heart and the you know, and the emotion and all that. I needed to live more of life. I knew I wanted it 25 years ago. I just was incapable. You know, because it was so personal. I think if the story had not been so personal, I probably would have been finished 25 years ago. But because it's such a personal piece and it means so much to me, it's taken me a long time to really figure it out. I mean, I've gone through so many drafts and it's gone this way and that way. And then I realized as I sat down to write this 12 days ago, not to write it, I mean, it's already been written, but to go in and just, you know, kind of go through it again. I was axing characters and scenes and dialogue. I'm just like, I don't need this. I don't need that person. I don't need this. I don't need that. I don't need this. I don't need that. I don't need this. I don't need that. And then I started to realize it began to really take shape, what the focus of the narrative should be, what the focus of the story should be, and what characters the story should focus on. And it became a smaller story. Which is fantastic. And because it was just too many this and this is going on and that's going on and this is going on. It's like, what am I doing? And so it just flowed. And I realized, oh my God, this is why. And of course I'm not going to tell you what all those things are or what the story is specifically about, because obviously I can't do that yet. But I just, the Violator is referring to is, that I finally finished it. I finally, at 11:08 p.m. last night, I finally, you know, ended with the last sentence, which was fade to black. And I sat there and I wasn't emotional, but I felt something. You know, I could feel it because it's such a personal piece. You know, as I said in my post, every filmmaker has a personal piece. Some to more degrees than others. Some it is personal because it happened to them, or it's a personal piece because they've always wanted to do a story like that, or they wanted to adapt. You know, there's different reasons of why something is personal to somebody, but this is a personal piece, and I'm just excited that I'm done. Now, that doesn't mean that I won't, you know, go through it again and tweak a line or tweak this, or have actually, you know what, maybe I'll have that person say that and give that line to somebody else. Sure. Those are little minor things. That's not a big deal. But actually the focus of the narrative, what the story is about, who the characters are, what the beginning is, what the middle is, what the end is, what the message is, all that kind of stuff is done. And it is amazing, isn't it, that for the first years of my life, not the first years of my life, for the first years that I was writing it, I was like, oh, and then, you grow up a little bit, you approach 50 and you look back and you realize, oh, here's what it needs to be. And you're done in 12 days. You know what I mean? I mean, that's living life for you, and what living life can do when it's personal. Right. And so, yeah, I'm very happy. It's weird. It's weird to say that it's done. I mean, the movie's not done. Obviously, I haven't shot the movie. But so to your other question, what are the next steps? I don't know yet. I mean, I'm not ready to, I mean, obviously I have to get other eyeballs on the script. I'm going to send the script to Bruce and get his thoughts, and, we'll talk about. Now, this is a film that I want to direct on my own. This is not a film that I would direct with Bruce. And it's because I have a very clear vision on what this is and what it's supposed to be, because it's very personal to me. Now, Bruce knows all about it because I've known Bruce for, almost 33 years. So he knows about the experience and the story, and he's very familiar with it. But the vision of what I want it to be and what it needs to be is very clear in my mind. So it's a story that I would direct, but I trust him, obviously, as a fellow filmmaker and somebody who works in the industry, and to get his thoughts on it and see what he thinks. And maybe he has some advice and things like that. And I would love him to come on as, say, like, a producer or something like that. But I'm nowhere near doing any of that. I mean, it's not like I'm announcing this thing is going into pre-production tomorrow, right? I mean, there's a lot of, because it's a major feature, right? I mean, it's a film that, I don't know, I haven't broken down the script, but it's a movie that may cost, a few $1 million to make, right? And so, I'm not at that point yet, but the script is done, the story is done. I can speak about it openly and candidly to the right people and sell it to the right people, sell the idea, right? You know what I mean? I'm at that, I'm at that stage in my mind. So, the next things to do would be to prepare what is called, to prepare, a lookbook, a package, that, has the script, has concept art, has, character breakdowns, locations, it's a production package, essentially, that can help sell the idea to potential investors, whether that's private, whether that's a production company, a studio, all that kind of jazz is something that I would like to put together. Whether I'll need it or whether I'll end up with the money some other way, I don't know, but it's good to be prepared. I think it's good to have that. I don't know where this is going to go in terms of what my journey will be with this film, but I am certainly excited. It's very clear. It's so clear in my head, so yeah, that's where I'm at with it, and. We'll see what happens. I will keep people posted as it continues to evolve. I'll keep you guys in the loop, and see where it goes. Josh McKenna sends in $9.99. Thank you, Josh, and says, "I like Sackhead Jason." Me too. Do you think Sack will come back in Crystal Lake or another Friday movie, or will it always be the hockey mask from now on? Well, we saw Sackhead a little bit in the Friday remake in 2009, but of course they tried to, have their cake and eat it too. I would like to see the Sack come back. Yeah, the Sack come back. Sack and back. I mean, can you say Sack? Yeah, I would like to see it. How? I don't know. Do I think they'll utilize it in Crystal Lake? I could see them doing it, yeah. And if it's a TV series, maybe they'll do it in a way where, maybe the first season, or like maybe they tell the story of Jason and his mother and his father and how that all went down. Maybe that's, I don't know, half of the first season. Maybe we jump forward. I would like to see more than just an episode with the Sack. You know what I mean? I'd like to see maybe a whole season. And then at the end of that season, then maybe like at the end of Batman Begins, when Batman turns over the card and sees that it's a Joker card, maybe there's a moment like that at the end of the first season of Crystal Lake or something, and you realize somehow, we're getting the hockey mask in season 2. Who knows? I don't know. But something like that might be kind of cool. Amaducia sends in $5. Thanks, buddy. Says, it makes me mad that my favorite kill, frozen head kill, is in the worst Jason film, Jason X. Yeah, that is a cool kill. I probably could have mentioned that on here. That's right. The frozen head kill. It is pretty cool. Tom Ungurian sends in $5. Says, Dave, did you know Joseph Vito, the director of Part 4, also directed the Man Behind the Mask music video? I did not know that. And if I did, I totally forgot about it. Thank you for saying that. Josh McKenna, another $9.99. Thanks, buddy. Says, not Friday related, but do you remember Johnny Depp's cameo in Freddy's Dead? Oh, I do. On the television, for sure. Happy Sanjo returned as a member. Thank you, Happy. And gifted 1 membership. Thank you, Happy, for doing that. I don't know who you gifted it to. I think my chat room has gone by. Oh, wait. No, here we go. You gifted membership to Ryan Olshow. No, not Ryan. A gift membership to Bob Berkins. Excuse me. Bob Berkins was gifted membership. Awesome. Thanks, Happy. Really appreciate that. Thank you so much. Really appreciate that. Alex says, Dave, obviously not looking for spoilers, but since it's a true story you experienced, is there a character representing you named Dave in the story? And is that meant to be a standalone movie? So yes, it is based on, I would call it based on true events, right? So you can play fast and loose with these, terms, based on true story, based on true events, based on true accounts. I mean, there's a lot of wiggle room and how it's used can be a bit loose. But in my mind, when something is based on a true story, the story you're watching is true, like a biopic. That doesn't mean that certain creative licenses might not be taken for whatever. But generally speaking, it's based on a true story. This is the story and this is how it happened. When it's based on true events, in my mind anyway, it is something that they've taken the events that have happened and said, okay, well, we can't just make this into a movie because it doesn't really adapt well for the screen. It might make a great documentary, but we can't just take this and literally write this and make a movie about it, right? So we have to take the events and build a story around it to be able to make it entertaining for the audience. And that's what I've had to do with this. So there's a lot of events that happen in the script that did really happen to us. And there's a lot of things that happen that we came to a conclusion of what may have happened here or all this kind of stuff, right? But the story, I had to build a fictional story around these events in order to make it more cinematic friendly, right? Because not everything, can translate to cinema well. And I'm not the first person to do that. And I won't be the last person to do that. So that's why for me, I wouldn't say that this is based on a true story. I mean, it is based on a true story, like technically, but it feels a little, you know what I mean? So I'm like, well, let's pull it back a little bit. It's based on true events, right? And I think that's a little more accurate, I think, as a depiction. There is a character that is based on me. His name is not Dave. And there are other characters in the film that are based on my friends from college. Their names are not used either. But yes, it is based on these people, right? So, there's certain personality traits or certain things that I do incorporate into these characters. And it's very clear to me because there's a few people that I still know to this day. Right. And so, it's very clear, when I'm writing, and sometimes I get a kick out of it because I know these people so well. But yeah, so that's what it is. And that was part of the thing too, is that I remember when I first began writing the script, over 20 years ago, that, and I was a bit, I'm naive, right? I mean, I'm 20, 3 or 4 years old. I've sat down to write this big screenplay and I have these big ideas in my head and of what I want it to be emotionally and all this kind of stuff. And I was a little out of my league, I think, a little bit when I was first beginning. I had to, which I've done. I've had to write smaller films. I had to write shorter scripts. I had to shoot shorter films. I had this big, it was a little big for my experience at the time. And one of the things that I realized very quickly, because I remember thinking when I was leaving college that, I'm going to write a film about this one day. And I remember thinking to myself, I'm going to, I'm going to write it exactly the way it happened. Everybody's going to, because this, I don't want to miss anything. I mean, this is really important. That's what I'm going to. And when you begin writing that, you realize that your script is 455 pages long. It was not 455 pages. But I'm just saying, like you realize it's really long, right? You realize, I can't have everything in here that I want to have in here. It's just not practical, right? And then you realize that maybe this would make a great documentary, like literally verbatim everything that that would make a great documentary, right? But it doesn't translate well for the screen, which is why writers and filmmakers adapt. It's why they go, okay, let's take these events, right, and take the crux of this, and take all this and create a beautiful story around this based on these events. That's why people do that, because things just, not everything translates well to the screen, right? It's why some books, they do that with some books, right? Because they realize that, well, this is great for a book. It's great for a book, but it doesn't quite work as a movie. So let's see if we can, you know what I mean? It's why that happens too. And this is no different. So I've created a story based around the events. There's a lot of events that do happen in the film that did happen. But of course you have to take creative licensing because there's a story that you're telling here, and there's a message, and there's a goal line that you're trying to get to. And what do you want the story to be? What do you want the message to be? Right. And so, you have to tell a story around that. And once I lived more of my life and I looked back, I was like, oh my, I know what this has to be. I know what this needs to be, and I just wasn't wise enough and mature enough at 25 to know that yet. Davey Deathray, what's going on, Davey? Sends in a member chat and says, Dave, do you have a favorite Jason moment or moment from the Never Hike Alone films? Ooh, great question. Shout out to Vince, Ghost Jason. Yes. I haven't watched the movies in a little bit. I do. Specifically, I mean, I love the way that in Never Hike in the Snow, love the way that Jason, when he steps up, it's like the kind of like this, the camera would have been on like a jib, and they track it, or it's like a low angle shot, and he's tracking around, and he's in the snow, and you get this low angle shot, and the snow's kind of blowing, and he's just standing there holding the bow and holding the arrow. Love that shot. And I love that whole opening, actually. I think the whole opening is awesome. What's his face now? I forget his name now. Oh God, I've met him too. We both got our faces cast at the same time by Nora Hewitt. Corey? I forget his name now. Anyway, Oddest of the Odd is his, I think, YouTube channel or social media. Anyway, when he's running through the wood, I love the idea of a yellow jacket, stands out against the snow. Great creative choice. Great choice. That whole opening is great. And, the bow and arrow and right in the back and the whole thing. It's fantastic. Never Hike Alone in the original. I love just the way that Vince shot the film. I think it's incredibly atmospheric and moody, and being in that big sort of barn and the light coming through the slats and seeing. I love the moment when our hiker. Is it Kyle? I think it is. He's hiding and he's seeing Jason, and then he disappears and he's looking. He's like, where is he? And all of a sudden he's right there, all that kind of stuff. Like really great creative choices. Really, really well done. Jason as Vince, obviously he shared the role with his stunt double, but Jason looks great. The way it's shot looks great. Never Hike Alone 2. I'm trying to think. Never Hike Alone 2. I've only seen it once. I think I got to watch it again to see now. I'm trying to think. Maybe, okay, you know what, off the top of my head, maybe when he's standing in the hospital holding that girl and her guts are falling out and he's got the weapon in his hand. He's just like, yeah, that's right, bitches. That's right. That's a great shot. Cascade in this red, ominous, emergency hospital lighting. It's great. It's great. Yeah, no, Vince did a fantastic, I mean, listen, he knows Friday the 13th, right? He knows it, and what I like about what Vince has always done with the Friday, with his films is that he gives you Friday the 13th. It still feels like a Friday the 13th movie, but he's, matured it a little bit. He's brought in a story. He's brought in some meat. It's not all just kids at a camp. He's made it. Actually, it's not about kids at a camp. It's completely different, right? And he's shown that it can be more. It can be done. It can work. You can do it, And so, I would love to see what he could do with a $5 million budget, $10 million budget, and an official Friday movie. I think I'd love to see what he can do. I think it would be pretty special, to be honest with you. I really, really do. So shout out to Vince DeSanti for making some pretty awesome Friday the 13th movies. Let me see here. Have I missed any super chats, member chats? I just want to make sure I haven't missed any. I don't believe I have. No, I have not. Okay, just want to make sure I have not. What's the time here? 4:11. All right. Not usually on this late in the afternoon. So I was like, 4:11? What the fuck? Oh, right. Yeah, I went on just after 3. Okay. We go back here. Let me see here. Johnny T says, hey, Dave, way off topic. It's been a while since I've checked in, so my apologies. That's all right. If it's a dumb question, no, it's all right. But what happened to the old studio, perhaps converted to different studio type? Oh, yeah, no. I'm still in the same place. I'm still in my house. I'm still in the basement. I just moved everything. So my studio, the old one, is just over there. I can stand up, walk 10 feet, and I'm back where it is. About a year and a half ago, I decided to move everything out of there into sort of the living area of my basement, just for a change. I just felt like doing that. I don't know why. I spend a lot of time out here anyway, and I thought, or down here and out here, and I thought, you know what? I'll just kind of do this. And then I knew I was going to be editing It's Me, Billy Chapter 2, and doing all the sound design, all that kind of stuff. And when Bruce comes over, we come down here and he sits on the couch back here and we talk. And then there are times where I'll be like in the room over there and Bruce will be out here and we'll be hollering to each other. I just thought, you know what, maybe I just wanted to change, move it all out here, put my booth out here and everything. And you can't see my booth, but it's over here. And then just kind of make a change and sort of treat the environment and just kind of make a bit of a change. And that's what I did. So it's the same. It's just, there really was no other reason than just a bit of a change and more of a practical thing when Bruce was coming over. But if I wanted to, I could put it back. I mean, it would take me a day to do it because I'd have to take everything down, unplug everything, shift everything out. Moving a studio, even just 10 feet is not, a half hour's job. So, but yeah, just a change, nothing crazy. Andrew Jones sends in $5. Thank you, Andrew, and says, hey, Dave, my favorite thing about the original Friday the 13th movies is the lighting or lack thereof. I think it really captures the atmosphere. No, you're right, Andrew, you are. Especially that first Friday the 13th movie. I mean, that first Friday the 13th movie, it's so dark. Now, this could also be because of budgetary restraints. Again, low budget film. But I really like how, when they're out in the woods, when they're going from cabin to cabin, it's really dark and you only see the flashlight. I'm one of those filmmakers and film fans that when it comes to horror, I really like when a horror movie is not afraid to be dark. I don't mean dark to the point where like the entire picture is dark and it's intrusive and it's pretentious. Yeah, you know what I mean? Where it's just like, I can't fucking see anything. I don't mean that. But, you know, when it's nighttime and when it's dark in a big home or something, I like that. I mean, that's how we handled the two Billy films, right? That we weren't afraid to have Victoria walk through the space and then you lose her in the shadows. And then she pops out again when she walks in front of a window, right? Like things like that. Like it creates this very claustrophobic vibe, this really, you know, like anybody could be popping out in any corners, and not that you think anybody will, but I'm just saying like it creates that, it creates this dark depth, this dark hollow void and what's around the corner. And I love that kind of stuff. And so, you know, when the characters in the original Friday the 13th leave their cabin in the rain and they've got their, you know, and they're running their flashlights and you don't really see anything but them and the flashlight beams. You know, there's this void that's all around them and you know that there's these woods out there, this forest, you know, what's out there? You know what I mean? I love that kind of stuff. I'm not a fan of, you know, larger productions that light everything up like a Christmas tree. So you're supposed to be in the woods, but it looks like, you know, like the moon is like the size of Saturn that's just like sitting on the doorstep or something, that everything is just lit up, you know, and I like it when, I mean, obviously you have to have some light, you know, so you have maybe a light off, you know, behind some trees that are acting like some moonlight or whatever, but I'm just not a fan of everything being so, you know, I like darkness, not being afraid to play in the shadows. So when it comes to Port Robinson Road, which of course is at the moment, at least the working title for the feature that I have just completed in terms of the script, that's how I imagine it. You know, I imagine it being like that, you know, because that creates, you know, when there's flashlights, you only see where the flashlight is pointed, or, you know, you only see the beam on their faces, right? You know, you don't really see anything around. I mean, you get a sense of it, you know what I mean? But it's dark, it's eerie. And, you know, I love that kind of stuff. I don't like when horror movies, when you have characters that walk into a dark space with flashlights, but we can see everything really clearly. And it's like, well, if we can see everything really clearly, why are the flashlights on? I know it's a dark home and it's nighttime, but if you got your flashlights on, I want to be like, oh yeah, like I fucking can't see anything. Like I get why they have their flashlights on. You know what I mean? I like that. And that helps to create, again, that mood and that atmosphere and that tension and the, you know, again, it has to be properly motivated and focused, and you don't just do that for the hell of it. But yeah, the first Friday the 13th movie especially, and some of the others too, but that first one especially has that in spades. Thank you, Andrew, for the super chat. Really appreciate it. What's the time here? Oh, okay. We'll go a little longer. Let me see. Evil Alex says, I love the style of the first 5 Friday films. Dark Nights, Raw Kills, cool array of music and sounds. Eerie music and sounds, I think you meant. Yes. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Even Friday 5. I mean, I think Friday 5, even though Friday 5 still kind of feels like a Friday the 13th movie, even though it has strayed away from what it, you know, was in the first few films, it still kind of has that DNA. And if it wasn't Roy the ambulance driver and it was Jason Voorhees, it would be a probably pretty acceptable Jason Voorhees movie. And it's got that great track in it, the Eyes track. What the fuck's that track now? Oh, the one where the girl dances in the room. Her Eyes or something? God, I can't remember now. Great track. Love that track. Somebody will let me know in the chat. But yeah, it's the first 5 Fridays are, you know, again, 5's not great, but it's like the last feeling, like once you get to 6, you start to get into MTV Jason, right? And it doesn't really feel like the earlier Friday films at all. Whereas Friday 5, although it's not Jason, still feels kind of like a Friday movie. Ooh, baby, ooh, baby, ooh, baby. I love that song. His Eyes, I think. Yeah, I think it was His Eyes. Yeah, Jeremy, it's a great song. Great song. Really awesome song. His Eyes by Pseudo Echo. Oh, I love that name. Pseudo Echo. Yeah, it's a great track. It's a great track. I mean, not as great as, The Man Behind the Mask by Alice Cooper, or The Man in the Mask. I think it's Behind the Mask. But it's still a great track. His Eyes by Pseudo Echo. Great track. Great track. Tom Ungurian says, First Friday, solid score. Friday 2 is a solid score. Part 3 is pretty much part 1 and 2 together, but part 4, shit, once them horns come in, best score in the franchise, just like H2. Yeah, the Friday score, and it goes away a lot as again, like the first Friday the 13th movies, those first 4 films, I love that shit. Love that shit. So great. So great. And you don't really get that in the later Friday the 13th movies. You know what I mean? Like even and I know it's not ch-ch, ha-ha-ha. I know it's k-k-k, ma-ma-ma. But of course we all agree it sounds like ch-ch, ha-ha-ha. Right? We all agree it sounds like that. So even the ch-ch, which was fantastic in that first Friday the 13th movie, and even the first few films, by the time you get to like 8 or 7, it's like, it really has no atmospheric impact. Like when you watch that first Friday the 13th movie, and it's 1958, I think it's 58, right? And Pamela Voorhees, it's a POV shot, and she's walking through the cabin, and you see the little kids asleep. Oh, that ding, 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 ding. Just that what weird, ding, ding, ding. And you hear, oh, it's so eerie. It's so eerie, and very effective, very effective. And once you get to the later Friday films, it just kind of, it almost feels like an obligation. Like the kick mama, we got to get this in here somewhere. It doesn't, to me, it doesn't have the same impact, the same like ooh, as it did in the earlier films. Cody Snyder, what's going on, Cody? One of our great moderators just gifted a membership. Thank you, Cody. Gifted to Andrew Rollinson. Ladies and gentlemen, Andrew Rollinson. What's going on, Andrew? Welcome to the McRae's, Andrew. Welcome to the McRae's. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Cody. Really appreciate that, Cody. Really appreciate that. Cody doing the work, folks. Doing the work. Let me Bing Jones says, I think the scariest scene in Friday the 13th history is the dream sequence at the end of 3. Okay. Particularly when he barges the door down and his face is just horrific. I agree with that totally. I agree with that. There's something about it being in daylight. Yes. So you're not talking about when Pamela comes out of the water, or maybe you are. Maybe you're including that. But you're talking about just specifically that moment where she sees him in the door, his face. I agree with you. There's something. Do you want to know what it is? And you're bang on. You're on the right track. It is because it's during the day. But it almost looks, how do I explain this? Because it was, but how do I explain this? You are right. You are on the right track that it is, part of it is because it's during the day and it's a sunny day. So it's this, again, it's this dichotomy that we don't, like our brains are like, we're not expecting to see this, horrific. He looks horrific. The way the door comes down, he just stands there. It looks like, how do I say? It looks like a set. It looks like a dream. It looks like a dream when it's not a dream. Like it's not, I don't think it's supposed to look like a dream, but there's a surrealism to it. And I think that's what makes it really eerie. There's a surrealism to it. It looks like a set. It looks like a weird set. Like there's a surrealism to that moment. No pun intended on the dream, because I know it was a dream, but that's not what I mean. I totally get what you're saying, man. I do. And I've always thought that as well. for sure. Andrew Jones sends another $5. Thanks, Andrew. Says, I agree. I really enjoyed the Billy films. Thank you very much. Black Christmas 1974 is my favorite slasher flick. Awesome. You did it justice. You did it justice. You guys did it justice. You did it justice. Thank you, Andrew. I really appreciate that. I'm glad you think so. In hindsight, when we look back on sort of the reviews or what people thought, I would say that overall, both films, I think, fall in the mixed to positive area from people that have seen the film. And that goes, with anybody who obviously, here on the channel, who's a contributor, to people who don't know me, I don't know them, to, you know what I mean? It's a overall kind of general idea of a lot of the reviews I've seen or reviews that have been sent to me and that kind of stuff. If you're a Black Christmas fan, I find that it's a bit black and white. There are a lot of Black Christmas fans that love the Billy film. Like, this is what the 2019, this is what we should have got. I mean, this is amazing. You did it justice. You did this. It's great. It looks great. This is amazing. Like, this is the sequel. You know what I'm saying? Get that. And then there are Black Christmas fans that are very upset. Honestly, they're like, no, Jess died at the end of the first movie. This is God. You can't do this. You can't do that. You can't do this. You can't do that. What is this? Nothing touches the first one. Nothing touches the original. No, nothing touches the original. The original is God. And we're just like, okay, all right, if that's how you feel. And then there's others that are like, I don't know if I relate, but it is way better than the other Black Christmas movies. You know what I mean? And then there are people that love it. So I would say mixed to positive. That's what I would say. If somebody asked me, I would say, yeah, I think the overall consensus from the general public is that it's mixed to positive, which is fine with me. That's good. I'd say that's pretty good. Glad you enjoyed it, Andrew. Glad you enjoyed it. Really appreciate it. Andrew Rollinson just gifted a membership. Amazing. The memberships are being gifted, ladies and gentlemen. David Thorson was gifted a membership by Andrew Rollins. I'm a crazy guy. Thank you, Andrew. Really appreciate that. And welcome, David Thorson. Welcome. Geeked Out Turtle Fan 44 says, Dave, we can't forget the lines in these films too, like the little girl hiding under the bed with the kids and saying, so what? Oh, I love that line. Yeah. So what did you want to be when you grew up? I don't think it was a little girl. I think it was two guys. Wasn't it two little boys that said that? I thought it was two little boys. I could be wrong. Maybe it was a boy and a girl. I could be wrong. But I thought it was a boy that said, so what were you going to be when you grew up? I love that line. Yeah, that's Friday the 13th Part 6. Yeah, that was fun. Bobby Hall, what's going on, Bobby? He says, Dave, when you first saw the original Friday the 13th and thought it was Jason saying, help me, did you think something paranormal was going on, since that would mean Jason is still a child? Well, I don't think I thought it was Jason, because the original Friday the 13th was not the first Friday the 13th I saw. So the first Friday the 13th, and I had an older brother who was very up on all this stuff, right? So I knew watching the first Friday the 13th that it wasn't Jason, that the mother was the killer and all. Like, I already knew that. Because when the first Friday the 13th came out, I was like 1.5 years old, or 1 year old, right? So I wasn't, I'm not even like, what's going on? By the time I got into horror, which was probably around 83, 84, so I would have been about 4 or 5. There were already Jason Friday the 13th. There was Friday the 13th Part 2, Friday the 13th Part 3, right? And so I watched those before I actually watched Part 1. And I think I watched Part 4 even before I ever watched Part 1, I think. Because, in the 80s, when Jason became such an icon, even in the early 80s, like by 84, I'm 84, I'm what, 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm 5 years old. Even at that time, like how Halloween 3 was the one without Michael, Friday the 13th was the one without Jason. And so a lot of us kids used to just watch the Jason ones. And it wasn't until I was maybe 6 or 7 that I finally sat down to watch the first Friday the 13th. And so I already knew that it wasn't Jason. as the killer, and I knew, help me, mommy. I didn't know that was her necessarily. I was just like, oh, there's a kid out there. That's kind of like, maybe it's the ghost of Jason or something, right? You know, maybe I thought that. But I did, I can't remember now. It's nearly 40 years ago. But I do remember that maybe I thought that. But then it became very clear to me once you get to the end of the movie, of course, when she's like, kill her, mommy, kill her. It's like, oh, that's Pamela Voorhees. It's doing that, right? So, yeah. What's time here? We'll go another 10 minutes or so, another 10 minutes, and then we will call it a day. Johnny T says, hey, Dave, I know that you have the CFL in Canada. We do. But just curious if Super Bowl Sunday is a popular thing in Canada. It is. Oh, yeah. No. The NFL is way more popular here than the CFL. The CFL was hugely popular here. And I think even at one time, don't quote me on this, the CFL and the Grey Cup, which is the Super Bowl of the CFL, is older than the Super Bowl and the NFL. The CFL league is older than the NFL, I believe. The CFL at one time was huge here. I mean, huge here. It was huge. And ever since the NFL in the late 80s, early 90s, through cable expansion and all that, started to, now people could watch, not that we couldn't watch the NFL in the 80s in Canada, of course you could, but I'm just saying, you know how like things began to really expand and all that, and the NFL dominates up here. It dominates. So yes, the Super Bowl is just as popular here. Of course, we don't have as many people, but it's popular. People have Super Bowl parties. My brother Neil is a huge Kansas City Chiefs fan, not because they've won the Super Bowl. He's been a Kansas City Chiefs fan since the early 90s. So he's just on he's on cloud nine. My brother Bob is a Packers fan. My sister Jill is a Packers fan. I guess would be a Buffalo Bills fan. I don't follow the Bills as much as I used to in the early 90s when they lost 4 Super Bowls in a row. And I kind of was like, okay, I'm out. But just recently, now that they've started to become a pretty good team again, I've started to kind of, reignite my little bit of fandom for the Buffalo Bills. But yeah, the CFL still exists. It still gets crowds, but it's not as popular. Like a big crowd for a CFL game would be like 15, 20,000 people, right? Whereas back in, its heyday through the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s, you'd have like 50 or 60,000 at a CFL game. It was ridiculous. But now, not so much. It's one of the reasons why there isn't an NFL team in Toronto. The NFL would love to get into Toronto. They would. One of the biggest markets in North America. And, but it would just destroy the CFL because the Toronto Argonauts are sort of like the big team in the CFL. And if you destroy the Argonauts, nobody's going to go see the Toronto Argonauts at the CFL anymore. So they're just going to go to it will lose support. Nobody will care. And then they feel that that'll be the beginning of the folding of the league. And so, but I've always said, listen, things change. Maybe it's time to incorporate them somehow. And I don't know, but you know what? If you go watch a CFL game, it's good football. These aren't shitty players. I mean, some of the players, a lot of the players actually are players that maybe didn't make the cut for the NFL or, whatever the case is, but it's good football. It's different, obviously, right? 3 downs as opposed to 4. Our field is 110 yards as opposed to 100 yards. There's differences, but it's good football. It's more of a passing game too, because there's only 3 downs. The CFL is more of a passing game, so it's higher scores. So you get a lot of long bombs, a lot of passes. It's exciting football. It really is, if you give it a chance. But it just can't compete with the powerhouse that is the NFL. It's just, but it's still around. Still kicking. All right, 5 more minutes. Have I missed any super chats? Any member chats? I don't believe I have. Let me just go back to the other screen. I just want to make sure I haven't. I don't believe I have. Okay. I just want to make sure. No, it doesn't look like it. I just got an email from IATSE. Okay. What is that all about? Oh, okay. Look at that later. Let me see. Chester Franklin Jr. says, Dave, was you ever a fan of Uber Jason in Jason X? Not really. I've seen Jason X once and probably not in 20 years. I've seen clips obviously since then, but no, that's actually not true. I think I watched, did we do Jason X for the best and worst of with a slaughtered lamb? I can't remember now. No. They've done it. I didn't. No, I'm sorry. I got my franchises mixed up. I wasn't a part of that. I was part of the Elm Street one. I knew I had done some big franchise with those guys. Yeah, so I haven't seen Jason X in a long time. And I remember thinking, it was fun that it had Jason in it, but I didn't think it was like some great film or anything. All right, a couple more minutes, folks. Let me see. Tom Hungarian says, Part 4 and Part 7 scared me the most when I was a kid. I thought Jason was scary in Part 7 and Part 4. Tommy being a kid probably scared me because I was a kid. Yeah, probably. Well, yeah, because you lived vicariously through him, right? I mean, I was like that. You know, when the final chapter came out in 1984, I was 5. Corey Feldman's, a bit older than me. I think he's in his... Hey, Google, how old is Corey Feldman? 53, yeah. So he's, 10, 9, 8. He's 8 years older than me. Maybe 7, depending if he just turned 53, I don't know. So yeah, so he would have been like, 12 or 13. And so, but he was still a kid. And even at that age, even though I was like 5 and he was like 12, you're still kids, you know what I mean? And I could still, live vicariously through the youthfulness and the energy of this kid. And I think we all did. No matter what time you saw the movie, if you were a kid when you saw it, you definitely probably would have glommed on to him, because out of all the characters, he would have been the most relatable to you at such a young age, right? So yeah, that makes sense. All right, folks, listen, that is going to do it for me for this episode of McRae Live. I want to thank, of course, the member chats that came in, the super chats that came in, our new members. Thank you to Cody and Happy Sanjo for, and Andrew. I think Andrew as well did one, I think. Anyways, thank you to those who gifted memberships today. Really appreciate it. And listen, if you're watching after the fact, jump into the comment section and let me know your thoughts on some of your favorite Jason moments from the Friday the 13th franchise. And anything else I had to say here today, let me know your thoughts when you can, if you feel like it. That's going to do it for me here on this episode. I will be back soon with another episode of McRae Live. If you're not following me on social media, you should be. All my links are in the description. Check them out until your heart's content. And when your heart is content, check them out again. That is going to do it for me. In the meantime and in between time, I will talk to you all soon. Alrighty. Cheers.